Night to school, daily fistfights, barely punished. So since kindergarten, me and this kid I'll call Andrew have been in the same class together. He's always been kind of a smartass, but we were friends. But this all started to go downhill in first grade. One day, we had a sub. At the end of the day, Andrew got mad for whatever reason. Andrew started to get mad, and this is the first blow-up I've seen him have. He started throwing his desk in the air, really kind of just tipping it, and knocking some of the things out of it. The sub didn't really do anything from what I can remember. I thought this was a one-time thing, but 8-year-old me was wrong. On several occasions that weren't serious enough to remember, Andrew lost his S. In first grade, our class had to take a test to see if we were gifted or not. Of course, Andrew was gifted, and so was I. In second grade, there was this other gifted kid in our class. It was a gifted cluster class, so a pretty large chunk of our class was probably gifted, that both me and Andrew were now friends with, who we'll call Dylan. Dylan stayed in our class from then on, now 5th grade. He's also had to deal with Andrew's S. Let's skip to 4th grade. This was a pretty uneventful year. Now, there's this kid who lives on Andrew's street. Let's call him Brad because he was kind of a D. Every morning, and I mean every morning, Brad and Andrew would get into what were practically fistfights on the bus. Our bus driver was a pretty chill dude, so I don't know that he knew what was going on, but he wasn't a bad bus driver. But later, he brings some justice. So Andrew doesn't like some things. He doesn't like being called nicknames, and sometimes he can't take a joke. When he gets mad, he gets all pink and usually cries and plays the victim card. One day, when me, Dylan, and Andrew were getting off the bus, last ones to get off, Andrew very casually said, "A lot of people don't know that I physically harm myself." I don't know what to do. So I did the most logical thing I could think of and told our teacher, a very nice woman. Kinda crazy, but she thanked me for telling her. Later, Brad ended up getting suspended or something and banned from the bus for kicking a kindergartner or something. I don't know the details. Later in the year, Andrew brought a knife to school. He was showing everyone. This didn't raise any red flags until he states it was for self-defense. That's a big no-no. Luckily, our mutual 5th grade friend told the bus driver, and Andrew was escorted off the bus by the vice principal. He was suspended for 3 days, and Dylan told the whole class what had happened. I didn't want to say anything, as I thought it would be kind of disrespectful. Another time, afternoon, he sat on a kid, fellow 4th grader. Let's call this kid Diego. Diego usually sat in the seat in the back, the 3-seater, not the half seat. Diego raced back there, and Andrew climbed over the seat on purpose. Me and Dylan watched in horror as Andrew sat on Diego, our fellow classmate. Diego was trapped under the seat. Andrew was yelling against our reasoning that he should get up as everyone in the last few seats, mainly me, Dylan, and Diego, were basically pleading with him to get up. That's when the bus driver comes back and gets Andrew to get up and the vice principal comes on. I don't know what Andrew said, but he started doing that angry cry I mentioned earlier and was escorted off the bus along with his pre-K sister who was not involved. Andrew wasn't suspended, but he wasn't allowed to sit next to Diego after that. Thankfully, Diego was unharmed. Diego wasn't in our class this year, luckily. Even later in the school year, I saw Andrew on a Google slide. This was the year our city put Chromebooks out in schools. That was basically about how much he hated himself and what he thought was wrong with himself. I didn't end up telling a teacher as I didn't know how to do it. I tried to, but it just never was the right time. Eventually, Andrew was put into weekly therapy. He told me and Dylan first, which we were happy about because he clearly needed the help. I also decided not to share this with anyone, as I thought it was a pretty personal thing and not my business to be sharing. Andrew told everyone in the grade, but I didn't really care, as it's his business to do what he pleases with. But that was last year. There was still another year's worth of BS to write. So there was an opening for safety patrol. Only 4th and 5th graders could apply. Me and Andrew both got in. We were in the first rotation. There were too many applications, so it was split between 3 sets of us throughout this year. In our 2nd or 3rd week in, background, we came to class 5 minutes late because that's when the bell rang for us to get to class. He stomps into the classroom, throws his badge and sash onto the floor, and is crying/yelling about how he's done and wants to quit. Our teachers took him outside, cooled him off, and a few days later, another 5th grader took his place. Neither me nor Dylan nor anyone else knew what happened. He had the 2nd grade hallway and where parent pickup and daycare go. I don't even want to think about him yelling at some poor child who's on the wrong side of the hall. So by this time, me and Dylan were pretty much done with his S. You may be thinking, why not just stop talking to him? But it wasn't that simple. He's a good friend, and I don't want to die to call him out on his S. So at the beginning of the year, us fifth graders have to take another gifted test to make sure we're still smart, and the three of us were still gifted. In our area, there is a gifted school that was recently built. It's like the K-12 or something, and gifted students were allowed to apply. I'm surprised that Andrew can still ride our bus, let alone apply for the school, but whatever. So our group of like 6 gifted students, me, Dylan, Andrew, a kid we'll call Steve, important later, another girl in our class, and another girl in our class who also doesn't like Andrew, all go to the special programs room to take the test to apply. There were some second graders doing some tests too, and third graders taking relatively the same test, just a little easier. So we get these booklets and we got like 10 minutes, also important, to complete a section and a bubble sheet thing. And there are 9 sections that we do on our own. But we as a group need to wait to continue. It was patterns, number patterns. You had to fill in the bubble for the rule, and the rules weren't easy. I ended up on the waiting list for that school, farthest I've gotten, and we haven't heard anything else, but yeah. But when the lady, same lady who did testing earlier that year, announced the 1-minute mark, Andrew made a noise. I looked up across the hexagonal table, Dylan on my right, Andrew on Dylan's right, and saw Andrew crying, freaking out. Our gifted resource teacher was also there, and both of them basically told him that they could remove him if he couldn't get his S together, to which he freaked out even more. He was pretty frantic when we continued, but he eventually calmed down. So now, almost done here, just a few more paragraphs, we're into PE. There are a few kids Andrew hates. Steve, his friend, Henry, also important later, Frank, his friend, girl who doesn't like him from testing. Honestly, everyone who is in our friend group kind of hates him. That girl's friend, another friend of theirs, and this kid, Gary, who everyone hates. Gary always makes noises at inappropriate times, dances while walking down the halls, and makes a fool of himself and asks teachers for hugs, along with saying hi to people at ridiculous distances. Like, do you think that Mrs. Henry can hear you from across the gym? And when you ask him to stop, he says no. He holds up the class by crying and walking away, like legit to a corner or something, and yells. But yeah, I don't know what mental disorder Gary has. But he always says that he's, quote, mentally retarded. And I know that making fun of a retarded person is effed up, but I doubt that's really what it is, as Gary makes comments about killing himself and how he's depressed and how everyone hates him. And everyone does try to help him or make him stop, but he doesn't listen. This beautiful cast of characters becomes hellspawn to Andrew. Andrew made one of the girls cry, constantly torments Gary and Steve, makes fat jokes about Frank. Honestly, everyone does. He doesn't shower. He's an effing perv. From experience, is on and off friends with his entire friend group, and he makes it his job to annoy everyone. Well, he's not much fatter than me, but I don't try to make everyone hate me. And I like to think that I'm pretty well respected. And chases one of the earlier mentioned girls during PE with a hula hoop when he gets mad and she yells at him for getting in her face. Henry. Poor Henry is a sensitive kid, but otherwise pretty cool to hang around. He cries a lot is my point. The other week, apparently Henry, quote, took Andrew's hula hoop. He's one of those weirdos who collects them on his shoulder and tugs them around during recess. So Andrew was in his face, yelling at him to give it back. Henry, somehow being the kid who sobbed over some kid getting his napkin on his flatbread, isn't crying at this point. He firmly hangs on to that hula hoop. Andrew is dragging Henry by the hula hoop, grinding his teeth, eyes popping, red face yelling at silent Henry. Once again, Andrew is in no trouble at all. Lunch. The last part, for now, of this incredibly long, oh my god, wow, sorry, post is insane. I've been waiting for about an hour now. Bear with me. So, in the 4th grade, to put this into perspective, Andrew got mad and started to slam this thick book into his head and liked to use his lunchbox, very long strap things, to disgust us by showing how long he could strangle himself. Yeah, it got worse. So this year, when Andrew gets mad, he slams things. We have assigned seats for lunch, so it's me, Dylan, Andrew, this kid I'll call Ralph. Andrew hates Ralph. And 2 of the girls mentioned earlier who hate Andrew, along with this girl whose main deal is that she was held back for kindergarten, a year older than everyone, except this one girl, aka a different story, and likes to constantly moan on purpose and say things like that to everyone, even teachers, and she rarely stays at our table during lunch. She's usually yelling at other tables or just sitting at them. Ralph likes to joke around a lot, which makes Andrew's blood boil. Jokes become personal attacks to this dude. Like, one day, Ralph said that they shouldn't have put Waluigi in Smash Brothers or something, and after a while, Andrew goes insane and starts slamming his lunchbox on the table. Andrew likes to take stuff from people's plates. Like Ralph gets a chicken salad for lunch, Andrew eats the chicken. Ralph doesn't mind, but the two girls do, as Andrew likes to yell and shake Ralph a lot, leading to a bunch of blowouts. Andrew concerningly eats his entire lunch in like 5 minutes. Us main three are all kind of chubby, no offense, and talks and eats others' food the rest of the time. Now, since I'm in this girls' coding club, I'm not at lunch once a week, and sometimes this other club calls me for lunch too, so I haven't seen every freak out. Apparently, the other day he broke the glass thing, the table number card holder thing, and a chunk flew off while I was at one of my clubs. Whenever we get in trouble, Andrew likes to blame the moaning girl for yelling, and says that me and Dylan, the peacemaker, thanks Dylan, constantly want to make a smart comment about his rants and tells the two girls to stay out of his business. Recently, we've been playing D&D. Me, Dylan, Ralph, and Andrew. Since we all died, we restarted. But he said we couldn't choose our race because the first time around, Ralph said he wanted to be black so he could say the N-word. Ralph's Asian. Dylan and Ralph are the only two white people at the table. They also told this as a joke to one of the black PE teachers who just looked at Ralph with a disappointed smile and walked away. Ralph said he wanted to be Goku and stuff, so of course, Andrew went ape-s. The usual slamming and such. No repercussions. The following Monday, I brought a dice to school for D&D. Dylan and Ralph were playing, but when I put it down on the table, while the two thanked me, Andrew simply said, "Oh, don't worry, OP, we aren't playing today," completely ignoring the two.